What's up, everybody? Welcome to a bonus episode here of the Pert in Your Outdoors podcast. We're going to go down a little different path here. This is episode 126, and this is going to be a little education in local politics and a discussion with an individual close to me and my family, Rick Milne, who's running for Monroe County legislator in the 6th District. And we're excited to get Rick on here to talk a little bit about what his mission is, why he's gotten involved in politics, in local politics, as well as been the mayor of Huntay Falls for going on 20 years now, which is insane because it feels like just yesterday that he was elected mayor there. So very much looking forward to this discussion. So hope you enjoy, hope you learn a little something, and I hope you find yourself motivated to get out this upcoming Tuesday, the 2nd of November, to vote in your local elections here in New York State. So very excited about that, and strongly encourage everybody to get out and do so. I have a couple things to talk about on that vote. I mentioned in here that I wasn't thinking that there was really any vote to be part of here in my area. In Wyoming County, I haven't really been seeing many signs, but in my travels for work out in the Finger Lakes, there's just signs everywhere. So found it kind of interesting, and I just assumed that there wasn't anything to vote for. So I came home last night and did a little research on the WyomingCounty.gov website and found that there's many races throughout the county here, most of which are unopposed, but there is a vote on Tuesday, and there is a ballot to be filled out, and to be part of that is important. So I look forward to going and voting on Tuesday. So check that out. Go to your local county if you're not aware of what it is there, what is up for election, what's up for proposition votes. I strongly encourage that you do that and you go get engaged and exercise your right to do that. And the beauty is that this is just practice for the big show. So even if there isn't something big going on, it's good to get out there every couple of years and go to your voting place and go through the process to make sure you understand, how it works. So you're not maybe asking questions or trying to figure it all out when we have a big election in front of us. So I want to hit on what will be on the back of your ballot. There is something that's not really getting a whole lot of press, which I think is interesting. But there's four propositions, on the back of your ballot. No matter where you are here in New York State, the propositions are all the same. These are state level votes that are propositions for changes to some amendments. And I was out in the Livingston County area today, and I saw a bunch of signs that said vote no to propositions 1, 3, and 4. And I had heard a couple discussions on the radio over the last few weeks about the propositions. And so it kind of drove me to look into this a little bit. And I would encourage you to do the same. Look into what these propositions are. Do a little research. I just went on Google and searched propositions 1, 2, 3, and 4, New York, and came out right up with some articles and opinion pieces. And I think it's important to get yourself educated on exactly what these are, so that at the time of the vote, you either don't flip it over and don't vote, or you vote just based off of your wondering what the sounds of this is and that it sounds all good and rosy. I will say that all 4 of these propositions, they're kind of wordy. They're kind of a little bit confusing about what they're exactly trying to achieve with this. As a conservative and as a Republican here in New York, we are very much Democratic ruled as far as, on the big counties, the big cities, and obviously New York City and the governorship here, the state legislator, both the legislator and the House. I guess that's the correct terminology. It's all Democrat here in New York. So when I see things about changing or getting rid of things or making big sweeping changes, it makes me a little bit nervous to what the underlying goal is there. So there are several pieces out there that you can look into as far as articles and do a little research and see what your thoughts are on that and make up your own decisions. But I will say for myself, I will be voting no to Prop 1, 3, and 4. I'm not quite sure on Prop 2 yet. I need to do a little more research and understanding what the goal is there. But that has to do something along the lines with clean air and clean water, which it's hard to argue with that. But I'm curious what the overall motive is and what the goal is with having some sort of an amendment or a law in place that gives people the right to that. I'm just curious what power that will give to the government. So it's something I'm going to look into and try to understand. But Proposition 1 is around the lines of redistricting and how that's handled here in New York. And right now we're going through a redistricting process, which is very, very important because especially over the last year, throughout COVID and 2020, there's been a lot of people that have left New York State, and whether it's leaving the state or leaving the city, New York City, that is, and that dramatically changes the way that our seats are district, as far as how many representatives each area of the state has. Extremely important because if there's less people in the city, then they don't need as many representatives, so that we all have equal say across the state. So it's very important. I get nervous when we look at dramatically changing those redistricting rules, especially during times when we are going through redistricting right now, which is very important. So I will be voting no on that. The Prop 3 is allowing same-day voter registration. I am not a fan of that. I mean, just logically, the ability to walk in to a polling place and register, there's enough going on voting day that if you plan to vote, you should, follow the process, go ahead of the vote. It's not a surprise that the vote is coming, especially the big elections with the presidential election and things like that. There's just a lot of opportunity for, I feel, fraud. And I just think we need to have a cleaner process and not just somebody walking in the door and standing in front of somebody trying to register to vote. So my opinion there is vote no to that. And lastly, number 4, that would legalize universal voting by mail, meaning that regardless of whether you had a reason why you could not make it to your polling place, you could just vote by mail. This was something that we saw heavy in the 2020 election. I'm not a big fan of it, and I just don't think it makes a ton of sense. I think if you are able and you can find yourself to a polling place and it's that important for you to vote, I think that you should go to your polling place and exercise your right to vote in person. If you are if you're in the military or you're traveling for work or you're not able to do that, maybe you don't have a driver's license. There's a myriad of good reasons why you can't go to your polling place. But as far as if you are able and willing and you can go, polls are open in the morning early and they're open late after work. There's no reason why you can't make it and vote in person. So I'm very much against that. I think we need to get back to the norm of operation, and everything going crazy with the pandemic and everything of that nature. I think we need to get back on track to normal operating procedure. So those are my thoughts there. Don't leave those blank. Don't not vote. Educate yourself and make your own decisions there. But just wanted to share my thoughts on what I'm doing. A couple more things. Big thing in the news right now is the Dave Chappelle stand-up. I would strongly encourage everybody to check that out. If you enjoy stand-up comedy and you enjoy Dave Chappelle's comedy, this one doesn't disappoint. But there is a very, very, maybe more than any of his other stand-up specials, this one has a very strong undertone of the message he's trying to get across. And I would just say that, and I encourage people to watch it and listen to what he's really saying, especially as that special starts winding down. The final story that he tells, which I think is getting some of the most people reacting to it, they're totally missing the point. And it was powerful, and it brought a tear to my eye, and especially with everything that I feel is going on socially in this country, there's a lot to it. What he's saying and a lot of what he's saying is true. So think about what he is and make your own decisions there as well. So watch that before it gets pulled down or something crazy like that. And then lastly, make sure we talk about the holiday hunt on here. Make sure you reach out to the DEC and to your local representatives to let them know your thoughts on the holiday hunt, whether you support it or don't support it. voice your opinion. It's what the beautiful thing of this country is, that you have the right to do that. So with no further ado, let's jump right into the podcast with Uncle Rick and my father, Bill Harvey. Enjoy the show. Enjoy the discussion. Have a great weekend. And get out and vote on Tuesday. Good luck, everybody. Fade them. All right, I'm just going to hit record just because we're going to get her going. But so this is pretty cool. So I'm sitting down here. We're sitting at Dad's house, Big Willie, and I'm sitting here with Rick Milne, also known as Uncle Rick. That's how I know him. It's been the mayor now for a few years. That's the other nickname. And Dad, of course. So thank you guys for getting together here. I'm really excited for this discussion and to kind of have a different type of discussion on the podcast, something that I'm very passionate about and have grown. I guess I've kind of always been passionate about it, but I've grown more since I've probably over the last 3 or 4 years as life has changed and you have kids and family. Absolutely. And priorities shift a little bit. So I guess, first kind of turn it over. Uncle Rick, thank you for jumping on here. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to the podcast. Is this your first podcast?
This is my first podcast with you. I actually called into, I shouldn't say that, I called into one of your previous podcasts when we were talking about the food plots.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And asked a couple questions, and I've always enjoyed them. Probably don't get online as much as I want to sometimes, but no, I appreciate you asking me, and I think it really is interesting for you to kind of jump into a whole different genre of discussion.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate you asking me. This is great.
It is. Yeah. Dad, hi.
Welcome.
Thanks for the nice bottles of water. We appreciate it.
Oh, I want you to be comfortable, Bill.
Yeah.
But Rick, thank you for joining us for this, and we're excited. As you said, we're kind of shifting up the genre a little bit, but and Billy mentioned this in his lead into this week's podcast. I was just listening to it when I came home, but he was talking about the longevity of our friendship and our relationship, and we've done everything from fight fires to hunt deer to coach Little League and home renovation. We've done everything together over the years. So
we have. You think back in time, and when I bought my house in the village of Honeoye Falls, we paid like $60,000 for it, I think, and that wasn't cheap at the time. It wasn't expensive, but it was a house that needed a lot of work. And boy, I remember when we were young, we were crawling underneath the house. We were doing all sorts of plumbing and electrical work and stuff that I don't think my body would fit into anymore. So but it's been a long time. I mean, friends in high school, and as you said, we've grown up together. Our families have grown up together, and you have been, very instrumental in the whole process of what we're going to be talking about today. And I got to say, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing without you. And
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
My father he had a saying. He used to say, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. That was his saying. And it's now you've gotten me into one more thing. Now I'm a treasurer, finance manager for a campaign, and
right.
It's kind of fun learning something totally new and outside what I normally do. So I've enjoyed helping you.
Well, and the best part of it is not only have we raised money well, but we're paying all our bills, and that was, we'll get into this, I'm sure, but that was one of the big things for me, is getting into a real political race that has some visibility, and you have to raise money. And there's a lot of things you have to buy. There's a lot of things you have to spend money on. And what I didn't want to do at the end of this is be in debt. Because when I did that a number of years ago, I was in debt and in a different race. So we've done well. And again, it's been a load off my mind to have you just kind of take the ball as far as the finance stuff go. And I just say, hey, Bill, where are we at? You give me the numbers and we're good to go. So it's been great. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's cool. And so that if you are, people listen to this from all over the place, but if you are from the Rochester area, if you are from the Monroe County area, especially down here in Mendon, this district, and that's I kind of want to dive into that because I really don't have a full comprehension of how this all works, right? Everybody knows it pays a lot of attention to the big, the presidential election, things of that nature. Like that's what gets attention, especially in the world that we're in today with social media and the news and what it is. But local is so important. So that's what we really want to get into here is just understand, like Dad asked me this morning, like, what's the show notes for today? And that's Dad's thing. He's always busting me. Like, I kind of go into this stuff with like maybe an idea what I want to talk about, but really no agenda.
Yep.
But I think leading up to you running for county legislature, it's not just what you're doing right now with running for this. And then, I have your little, ad here, your little 1-pager card mailer, and all the things that you've accomplished in your lifetime of public service. I think that's a top, like, kind of where I want to get started here is like, how did you get to where you are today, in the fact of you've been serving your community seems like the majority of your life, whether that is, through volunteer firefighter or ambulance or as the mayor. I'm sure you've done more than what I understand there, but, finding the time to coach all your kids, whether it be Pop Warner football, you were engaged with the kids and all the things they did. And you got, Cody and C-Train and your daughter. I don't know what her name is. Kelly. Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm trying to run through all that. But
sorry, Kelly.
Sorry, Kelly. It's just been a long time since I've seen you. But, the kid, you were involved in everything in their lives. Right. So I guess I kind of want to start there is like, you as a person, and then, why you've gotten so involved in public service in your life. Because you and Dad are a lot the same with that. You've gone more on the political route, and Dad's now kind of working with you on that. Yeah. But there's a lot there. But let's just kind of start with like Rick Milne as a 25-year-old kid when you're getting your life going and why you started doing what you were doing.
Yeah, thanks. And that is a good place to start. As I became a married individual, my wife and I got married back in '82, and we really weren't that far out of high school. We were both working at Kodak at the time, and of course had dated in high school. But then, when we became a married couple and started a family, I also loved sports. And I actually joined the fire department because they had a softball team and they needed players. And that's literally why I joined at the time. I think it was Tom McGorry came up to me and said, "Hey, we need an outfielder or a shortstop." And I was still playing a lot of league softball. And I said, "Oh, that'll be fun on a Sunday." So I joined it. Well, you join the fire department to play softball. Next thing you know, you're doing training for fire service, and you're climbing ladders, and you're going into smokehouses. And it just kind of bit me, and I really enjoyed it. And of course, your dad was very involved, I think, in Lima at the time, but then Honeoye Falls as well. And we were already friends, but then we got more active through firefighting. And once you start going on calls, it just bites you. And I mean that in a good way. You can't get enough of it. And your dad and I talk about some of the fires we've been in, some of the rollovers that we've been in. I had a helmet that melted on me one time. It was so hot. But we, climbing on roofs, climbing on slate roofs and inching across that. I couldn't even begin to do that now. Being up on a roof of a major manufacturing building, and all of a sudden the whole air conditioning or heating unit just fell through the roof, and we were right there and almost followed it. We've been in some good calls, and so once I got involved with that, it wasn't about softball anymore. It was about firefighting, and became a young officer. Your dad and I were both officers, and we went through the ranks. But then the family grew, and next thing you know, you have 2 boys, and then you have a daughter, and you got to back off on some of that volunteerism. But you're still active. You're just not doing the officer's bit. And I served in the ambulance for a couple of years, but as I became an officer in the fire department, it was too much to do both, so I kind of backed out of the ambulance. But it was all fire department and family at the time. And then a few years as the kids got older, I guess I was always involved with the officers in their discussion with some of the village board members for new trucks or equipment or whatever. And I remember Ann Morton, who was our mayor at the time, came to me and said one of the village board members had to step off, had to resign because he was moving out of the area. And she said, "Listen, we'd love to have you fill in for the finishing his term." And it was going to be about a year. And I said, "Yeah, what the heck? I've never done anything like this." Didn't have any political aspirations at all. Had really never been involved in politics, but I joined and filled that position for a year, on the village board of trustees. And again, just like the fire department, it kind of bit me. I really enjoyed the involvement of being, talking to business owners, talking to residents, talking to other elected officials regarding projects that we had working or projects that they had working, and how could that work for Honeoye Falls. And I just really fell in love with it. And quite honestly, one of the reasons I've gotten involved in this stuff is because I didn't serve, and it might sound a little Pollyannish, but I didn't serve in the military, and that always bothered me. My dad served in the Navy at the end of World War II. He's 93 now and still kicking. And my brother was in the Navy for 4 years, and then he retired as a lieutenant commander in the Coast Guard. He went from the Navy to the Coast Guard. I've had a couple of nephews that have been Marines and served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I have another nephew who's a Raven. So we've had a lot of military involvement. And when I turned 18, I went in and signed up for the selective service right away, but I never served. And that always bothered me. And so I think not that I compare being a mayor or being active in my community to serving the military. I don't compare those at all. I, thank anybody who serves in the military profusely. And as I said, I don't compare the two, but I've always tried to look at this, or I initially at least looked at this as my way to serve in a different capacity. So, after serving on the village board for a year, I ran for re-election, served for 4 years on the village board. So now I'm a village board of trustees on the village board of trustees for 5 years. And our mayor, Steve Gustin, then at the time, had retired from Kodak, and he was moving out to Branson, Missouri, and he asked if any of the village board members were going to step forward, and none of the other village board members were going to. So I said, yeah, I'll run. And now I'm serving my 5th term. At the end of this term, it will be 20 years as mayor.
Really?
Yeah.
It does not seem that long.
Yeah.
That makes me feel old. Oh, my God.
It's amazing how fast time goes by. And, I will say, after as my 4th term was nearing its end, I asked all the village board members again, does anybody else want to step up? Because 16 years is a long time, 5 years before that as a trustee. And I do believe in change. I do believe in other ideals. It's not just about what Rick Milne wants. And it never has been. It's what our village board wants. And I've always been really, really proud of that. I know we have people who are Democrats on our board, people who are Republicans, but we run nonpartisan. And we never talk about politics. We just talk about what's right for our community. We don't agree on everything all the time. But at the end of the day, we figure out a way to find common grounds. And that's what my campaign is about now, common ground solutions. We don't have to give up on our values. We don't have to, waver from what we believe in, but we do have to have civil discord. We do have to have dialogue with people of the other party. We need a strong Democratic Party. We need a strong Republican Party. Now the Libertarians are getting a little bit more active, and I think they're quite a ways off, to be honest with you, but we need strong parties. We need to keep people in check and ask questions, because that's how you get ahead. And I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Amen to that. And that's, so kind of run through how does, I started that question with, like, we all kind of pay a ton of attention to the presidential or governor, these big name, big things, or mayors of cities. But, I've had this discussion with Dad, and Dad knows, like, I listen to a ton of political talk radio. I'm, like, very engaged in that stuff. My mind is, like, always turning. And I feel like, with this platform, it's like we've, like, pigeonholed ourselves in this outdoor realm, but there's like more to me and more to life and things that are important to me than just that discussion. Yeah. And one of those things is like I feel like people of my generation, we have lost touch with the way that things actually work. And I think that's part of the problem. Yeah. And one of the things that I've been hearing in some of the people that I listen to, some of the shows I listen to, is that, you feel helpless when it comes to that big picture, to the presidential election. It's like, because of where I live or whatever, does my vote really count? It may not. The way things are structured, it really may not. But what does matter is at the lowest local level that you possibly can.
Right.
And so let's kind of talk a little bit about that, about like local politics, why this is so important, why they're, I'm curious what some of the numbers typically are for turnouts, because it gets all the way down to school boards, and Dad, I'll kind of hit you on this after, Rick kind of talks a little bit about the structure of things, but a lot of people just don't show up.
Right.
So it's like, we need to change that, because there's a lot of people that are just like, I'm busy, I don't know what's going on, I'll show up every 4 years and vote for the president, but that's about all I'm going to do. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about like why what you're doing in your hearts, why is local politics so important, and what happens from the ground level here in our small community that can affect the full county, the state, the region, and ultimately all the way up to the top of our government.
Well, we always talk with anything in business or government or in our daily lives, the trickle down effect, right? Well, I kind of look at this as the trickle up effect. Mm-hmm. This grassroots engagement in government, whether it be your local village, your local town, your county, this is where it really does count, where it really does where you can make changes. You talk about voter turnout, and, boy, if you can get, above 30%, you're doing really good. You talk about some of the numbers in some of our village elections, we've had less than 100 people show up. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it's because maybe there's no controversy. Maybe there's no, we're working hard, we're working together, we're getting things done. No one is running against me, or no one's running for a village board of trustees seat. So it's kind of like, okay, why? Why do I want to come out? Well, even in a race where there isn't competition, we still need the votes because we need people engaged. And if people can come out and get engaged, that's where you will have the local politicians, the local people in government, in our local municipalities. They have to listen to those people that are around them. And if we're doing our jobs, we are listening. And certainly I'm sure there are those that aren't. But, it goes back, probably to my second election. And we always laugh about it, but I have this article from the Democrat and Chronicle sitting on my desk in my village office. The day of our elections, one of the local media people came out. I think it was actually the Democrat and Chronicle, and they asked me as I was walking out from voting. They said, "So how important is it, for people to come out and vote?" And I said, "In a small village election like this, it's huge because every vote really does count." And we talked about that a little bit, and sure enough, that particular vote, it was a tie. And it wasn't in mine. It was one of the board of trustees. But we had two people running for a position, and it ended up being a tie. And we literally had to go out and develop, okay, how are we going to break this tie? And we didn't have to have another vote. We actually did a game. I mean, we got golf balls, and we put them in a pot, and we chose a number, 1, 2, or 3, before they drew the golf balls out. But each candidate drew a golf ball out, and the one who drew the winning number, that was our new village. And I mean, it sounds hokey, and in a sense, it is small village type thing.
Right.
But the point was, that's how important it is.
Yeah.
Now that's
if one person would have showed up, it changed the whole thing.
Absolutely, it would have changed the whole thing. And again, that's really how it happens. And now I just posted on my legislative Facebook page this morning, just asking people to share my post and this and that about getting out to vote. It really is important. I had a guy pull in my driveway yesterday, totally outside of the context of the election. He was stopping by my house to ask me a question about something. And he kind of looked at me. He said, "Hey, good luck on the election, which is next Tuesday, November 2nd. And I said, "Thanks." He goes, "Oh, you got this. You got it locked up." And I said, "Oh, no, don't even start to talk like that." And that's what I hope I won't hear from people. "Oh, Rick, I didn't get out to vote because I thought you had it locked up."
Right.
No, I need every single vote I can get because I'm in a competition. And do I feel good about where we're at? Absolutely. I think we've done everything right. I've knocked on thousands of doors. We've gotten the word out as best we can. But it's not just the Republicans' vote I need. I need the conservative votes. I need the Democrats' votes. And I know I've talked to a lot of Democrats, and so I'm on I'm a Republican conservative. That's the ticket I'm on. But I've knocked on a lot of Democrats' doors who like my story, who like what I'm saying, and they tell me I've got their vote, and I hope I do. But I need that vote. And then we talk about the blanks. And Billy, you mentioned something earlier about your generation. That's one of the things, that's one of my goals as I get elected to this legislative position, is I really want to focus on bringing the young adults back into politics and back to the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Because what a lot of people really don't understand is that it was back in history, it was the Republican Party that were anti-slavery. It was the Republican Party that were trying to get, equality for people, et cetera. We have, as a party, I think, drifted a little bit, from our roots, and we've got to get back to that. But we need to get away from the younger generation saying, "Oh, it's not important," or the Republicans are they're this. That's not what we're all about. And we've got to get folks like you engaged, folks like your brother engaged. It's really important because without that young vote, without those young people, our party is going to be lost, and the Democratic Party will be lost too.
Well, I think you have so many people in my generation that we aren't in one of those boxes, and I think that's one of the problems. You have a ton of independents. I'm a registered Republican, and my values are very conservative because of the way I was brought up, but I'm also 33 years old, and I went to college, and I was surrounded by a lot of things that are not what my family grew up with here in small town Livingston County, so I have a lot of different feelings and ideas, and it's like, so I am in this box and I'm in this box, so really I'm in the middle, and I think that's where most people are, is in the middle, and then we see but that's a good thing. I think that being balanced and being understanding of the way that, I don't, when it comes to, gay marriage and rights for LGBTQ, all that stuff, I do what you want to do, but don't force those things upon everyone. That's where I think a lot of people are, but it's a very uncomfortable thing to talk about, because if you say that, you just get pounced on and attacked. And then, so what that does is it puts people in their shell, they ball up, and they say, "You know what, nobody listens to me, nobody cares because of what I think. I'm a crazy person apparently, so I'm just going to stay on my own and do nothing." Yeah. And that's a very sad place to be, because I'm scared to post things, because I literally have people in my innerest circles. There's one individual that if I post something, I'm scared about how that one individual is going to react, not the other 1,200 people that follow me that, there might be 900 people that agree with what I'm saying. Right. But people are afraid to talk right now. Yeah. And that's a scary place to be.
It is. And I think that middle of the road area, to me, the far right and the far left don't work.
No.
And again, that doesn't mean we have to give up some of those values.
Right.
But we have to kind of move towards the middle to at least have dialogue. I think, there are so many, as I look at my walking routes, and I have every address that I'm going to, and it tells, are they Republican, are they Democrat, are they blanks, are they conservatives? And it's amazing how many
blanks are
are independents.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're not registered to either party. And there are so many of those, to your point. There are so many out there, and they're not all younger adults. There's a lot of them that are younger adults. But it's a wide array of people, but there's so many blanks now. Some have left either party because they don't believe in what that party is doing anymore. Mm-hmm. Where that hurts is that when you do have primaries and when you do have some of those early elections, you don't get to vote.
Because you're not registered.
Okay. So that, that's why I would like to see more people go to whichever party they're going to go to as opposed to being a blank. Because, and then in a major vote, you can vote your mind, So it's kind of a catch-22. I mean, there's still always going to be independents, and that's fine. But those are the people we're trying to get to because there's so many. And we want people to understand that what you've seen over the last 4 to 6 years from either side is not really where it has to be.
Right.
We have to bring people back in, and we have to engage. And you have to be, Billy, you have to be able to speak your mind. It has to be done respectfully.
Right.
If it's not done respectfully, then you're going to get hammered. And that's what I always try to do as well. I'm going to agree to disagree with people, but they should, as long as I'm speaking respectfully and hopefully intelligently, mm-hmm. Then if they can't respect that, then they have issues. Mm-hmm. So we need to really work on getting the younger generation engaged and involved. And and that's where, again, it starts at the lower levels. We have to continually develop good, young people to take on some of these positions and move up the ladder. Because when you look at those either party has running, and people are not going to like what I'm going to say here, or some people won't, but I don't think if this is the best we can do nationally from both sides, we're in trouble.
We're in trouble, yeah.
We have to have good people getting engaged and moving up, and it has to be people that will be willing to have those conversations. Back when your father and I were real young, and politics has always been tough. It's always been cutthroat in some ways, but it used to be that you would argue on the floor, you would argue back and forth and talk loudly and vigorously, and then you'd go out and you'd sit down with each other and you'd just talk about it. And you'd say, hey, that was a nice debate, And granted, there was always some unpositive stuff, non-positive stuff that's happened as well. But it just seems like today it's just the finger pointing and the name calling, and it's gotten so vulgar. We've got to get away from that.
Well, it's the lack of people taking accountability and responsibility for their actions.
Right.
And I think that's one thing that's turned a lot of people off to politics, especially after the 2020 campaign. Is if there is a single person listening to this discussion, a single American that can sit there and say, especially now, 8 months into this presidency, and say, we made a great decision, didn't we, America?
Right.
We didn't have good choices.
Right.
I voted for Trump, but that doesn't mean that he was the best answer for this country. And we know where we're at right now.
Right.
There's more division, there's more hate, there's more up in the air what's going on now than there was 8 months ago.
Yep.
So it's like, people are looking at this and saying, like, we need better people. And so one thing I want to hit on with you is the what you made a comment, trying to think back to exactly what you said. It was along the lines of, people feeling like they can get to you and can say, I'm unhappy with the way that this is in our community or in our district. What can you do? So in your position, and that you're running for county legislature, what are you going to do for the people? What are the things that you are passionate about going in there and being there and listening to the voices of your constituents about what you're going to do?
You kind of just answered your own question, and it really is listening and being engaged. Mm-hmm. So for the county legislature, there's a lot of things that we get involved with, but when you think of the county, you think about the services that the county does provide, whether they be some social services and some educational services and supporting law enforcement, through the budget process and this and that, plowing the roads, sewers that the county is in or wastewater and stuff that the county's involved with, our parks, recreation, those types of things. Those are all things that the county's involved with. But I look at the position of being a little bit more local. So the 5th Legislative District encompasses all of the town of Rush, all of the town of Mendon, including Honeoye Falls, part of Pittsford, and part of Henrietta. My goal is to just make sure that those people and those municipal governments within those areas know that they have an active and engaged legislature. So, while the legislative position may be more county directed, I also think that if the town of Rush is working on a project and they're going to the county or the state asking for support with funding, then I would hope that as a legislator, I can at least lend my voice and lend a letter saying, hey, I'm Rick Milne. I'm the 5th Legislative District legislative representative for the town of Rush. They're trying to move this project forward. They need support, and I endorse this, and I support this project. And through my contacts in the state and county, I would hope that I would be able to help foster some of that. So it really, in my opinion, shouldn't just be county activities. It should be local support activities as well.
So Rick, could I point out, you've probably been on the other end of that, right? Where you've had something going in your community and you need some help or some funding and you have to go, you're relying on county legislators. And I only bring that up because it's, I think it gives you greater value as you move into the county position to have lived so long at the local municipality level, right? So you've experienced a lot of that.
Yeah, no, Bill, that's a great point. And I look back on my position as mayor over the last 16 years, and then I served as president of the New York State Conference of Mayors back in the 2015-2016 timeframe, and I traveled the state at that time, and I worked, I was able to work with Democrats, I was able to work with Republicans, trying to move forward the NICOM platform. And again, I think that's what I'm going to bring to the county legislature is that experience of working across party lines, not just in Honeoye Falls, not just in Monroe County, but across the state. City newspaper, wrote an article on the different races, and one of the comments they made was that Rick Milne is well respected by other municipal officials, both locally and around the state. And I think that's what I bring to the table is my ability to sit down with people and say, hey, listen, I'm going to vote Republican on a lot of things because I'm a Republican. But I'm also going to have that ability to sit down and listen to those who have been elected on a Democratic platform and say, okay, again, you're at A, I'm at C, how do we get to B? How do we benefit all those people that we're serving in Monroe County and come to some sort of a decision that works for everybody? We're never going to please everybody. That just doesn't happen. It's like anything we do in life. There's always going to be challenges. But are we doing the best we can for the greater amount of people? And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, you have to do – life isn't perfect. Life isn't easy. Not everything is going to be equal all the time, right, but you have to have balance and discussion there. Yeah. And that was a great answer to what you would do and how people could communicate with you and, what your mission's going to be there. And kind of the tail end of that is people that are reaching out, wanting to know how they can make a difference or how they can voice their voice. One of the things that I see a lot, I run in circles, I'm in garages, I'm working with a lot of guys that are rough and tough, and, people struggle to communicate their positions on things without going off the rails and seeming like a wackadoodle, whether you're on one side or the other. Yep. And that's one thing that I think people need to think about is you need to think about how you're expressing yourself. And I see things that people share on social media, or I see things that, that I hear discussions and conversations, and I think you can get a lot more accomplished by thinking about what you're saying and trying to understand if you're coming off abrasive, you're going to immediately turn that, and I know this as a salesperson, you're a salesperson, Rick. Like if you go in somewhere and you're like hard on somebody, they're going to immediately put a wall up,
right?
And you're done. Whereas if you go in and you're expressing yourself, you show that you care, you have empathy, but this is why I feel the way I feel, it totally changes the tone of the conversation. Right. So I think people need to have confidence to, reach out to a Rick Milne and say, this about my town or this about our county district, but also, you need to do that in an appropriate manner.
Right.
And, this is kind of where it comes back around to like the local politics side of it with like school boards. This has been like this whole new rush here in the start of school. And Dad, you've got experience with it because working for the school district. I think it's very interesting to see a lot of people now starting to, we never would have expected that, kids wearing masks and vaccine stuff would be a top priority ever at a school district. But here it is. But it's got people showing up, and you've got a whole new world of people engaging in something, and nobody really knows the protocol on this.
Yeah, we're seeing, and it's been, you watch the news media throughout the start of school in other states and other areas of our state, but at the school board level, there was a tremendous amount of people showing up. Like we had numbers of people at school board meetings that we've never seen before, right? Even for budget hearings and contentious years, we have not seen this level of participation. But it's emotion, right? A lot of people are emotional, and part of the reason they're emotional is because, they can't, like, who do you call at the Department of Health, right? Or
right.
The governor's office, because you want to, like, we get directives, the school district does, right? And we're at a local level, like a village or a town would be, and we get directives, and we have to abide by those. But we're also available, and that's what Rick was saying. Like Rick's county, if he's county legislator or as he is mayor now, you're likely to run into him at the grocery store, at a hardware store, and you can go, Rick, this bugs me, right? So that's.
But don't make a scene at Wider's Hardware. Right.
No, but
this is bullshit, Rick. It's not. That's not the way to get anything accomplished.
But what I'm getting at is you have that accessibility, and it's the same thing at the school board. If you don't like something, you can go and you can sign up and you can address the entire board at the board meeting, right? Mm-hmm. But you can't do that in the New York State Legislature or with the Department of Health. So there's people go local because they can. That's a place where they can be heard. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, like, I think back to, like, our current Monroe County legislator for District 5. Like, I've never talked to her about political issues, right? But, the fact that you can, somebody lives in your town or you run into them or somebody promotes that availability. Like through my transportation career, which I chair the New York State Legislative Committee for Pupil Transportation. So I'm able to, like, I've been exposed to a whole nother realm of working with various different senators and assembly people. And in that realm, it's like you get to actually have meetings with them or with their staffers. And so it's a lot of people don't have that connectivity. And this is one of the things that I think, like our lifestyle, we have literally seen where we didn't have a cell phone. I remember when I first got my first cell phone I mounted it it had me mounted in the car, and you put it in the trunk and ran the wires all the way up front. There was no cameras. It was just like, and then you had a pager, and if somebody pays you and it was an emergency, you'd have to go to your car and call on your cell phone. Right. Today, everything's social media. And that level of involvement, and it's real easy to lash out and strike out at others. So I think that, Rick's well positioned, as are a lot of other people growing up in the era that we did, where we were active in local sports, little league type stuff, and youth football, and the school district. You remember the Hall of Fame, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
HFL Hall of Fame. Both of us are inductees at the school district. For our various contributions, but that included, church work. You were a deacon there for a while, and I worked within my church and the fire department. But what that did was it gave us, like, we were always together. Right. Like, I felt like my whole circle of friends, my community was the fire department or the church or Little League. And it's funny now at my bus garage, I got guys, we're at the age where you can retire, and I got guys that I coached Little League with driving bus for me, you know, and we get the biggest kick out of that. But it put people in a position where they had, like, we'd be in the back room of the fire hall after drill night or something, and we'd go back there to have a pop, and we'd be sitting on the bench, and we'd be talking politics and stuff.
Right.
And a lot of people don't have those communities, like those little communities within a community. And so I think that's something that everybody struggles with. When I say everybody, I mean volunteer organizations, volunteer ambulance, volunteer fire, and any Rotary, any of these groups, right? There's fewer people being involved, and there's more for us to do. There's more for you to do,
right?
And so it's hard that it's a different day and things have changed, and I think it's good to have discussions like this about the importance of reaching out. Like I've called legislators' offices across like the entire region here when I'm lobbying for something in Albany. I mean, I just pick up the phone and I'll call Branson's office and I call these other, and they listen. It's like nobody takes the time to do it.
I know.
I follow up with an email, but once you establish that, you know, then you have their ear, and it does make a difference at state level and at local level.
Absolutely.
You go to a board meeting, you write a letter to the mayor, you write a letter to the town supervisor, you write a letter to your county legislator. It makes a difference. It's just a lot of people won't take time to do it.
Yeah, you mentioned, Billy, earlier on about, you know, the engagement with the elected officials, and, you know, and you're absolutely right. You know, a little bit of just calm dialogue and asking questions goes a long way. And some people, you know, in a sense, it kind of takes training, right? I mean, some people have never been involved in those kind of things, but yelling at somebody right off the bat doesn't really get you anywhere. But, you know, it goes two ways. And, you know, I think as a legislator or as a mayor, you have to get out and talk to other groups too. You have to engage some of the other groups and ask questions. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And you can't be every place all the time, but I do believe it's up to us, those who are elected, to take the time to go to some of these other meetings, or at least reach out to some of these other organizations and say, hey, you know, listen, I'm around. You know, if you have questions, I'm happy to come to a meeting. Again, we have personal lives too. We can't do it every single night,
right.
But you have to put yourself out there, and you have to genuinely want to listen. And some of the conversations do seem to maybe go off the rails a little bit. And some of them, sometimes it's just a matter of saying, I hear what you're saying, but that is totally out of my realm. But I suggest you go here, or, you know, go talk to this person, or go, and it's not trying to pass the buck. It's just saying that's totally out of my realm.
Right. Yeah.
But again, my point is that simply it goes both ways. You know, we all have to engage better. We've all lost, although we're on this wonderful podcast today, we've all lost that art of talking. We're all on our phones. We're all texting back and forth. You know, you come to dinner, you know, and I, you know, you come to your parents' house for dinner, you better be putting your phone away. And we try to get our kids to do that too. Yeah. You know, just put the phone down for an hour. Have family discussion. Talk about what's going on in your life, but do it face to face. You know, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes you got to be on the phone or on a FaceTime call or whatever, and that's all well and good.
Like during the rut, I mean, you got to keep your phone closed.
Well,
you got
to. There are certain times that the phone's got to be off, and you know,
we get a big buck down. We need to know.
I know
exactly. You know, I think that's one thing as I look through this campaign that we've been involved in, Bill. I think that's the one mistake we've made is we didn't go out and buy camouflage shirts that say Team Milne for legislator. Right. You know,
right.
Although I saw you drive by the other day in your Dodge Ram truck with the camouflage on it with the Milne.
Well, it does look nice that way. I must admit.
So what is I mean, we're kind of like beating around the bush. Like, what is the best way? So I'll give you an example, a hunting example. This past, like 2 weeks ago, we had that youth hunt initiative that was county by county based. Counties could opt in. Ultimately, it was going to come down to the, what was pulling cars, and what's his position?
Well, it would be the county executive.
County executive.
Oh, yeah.
County executive
So-
make the final say.
Where I want to go with this ultimately is, like, what is the structure within a county? You know, how political structure in a county. But, you know, that right there, it seemed like all of the legislators in the county supported this direction, and they had voted on it. They had meetings, hearings, did everything. Then it got to the executive level, and the executive vetoed it because of his personal beliefs, and it had nothing to do with what the constituency wanted. It had nothing to do with what his legislators wanted. So that got me emotional as well as it did. It should have gotten every New Yorker emotional. I even saw a couple pages from other people in other parts of the country that actually picked up on that and were posting that on their hunting social media pages. It's like, well, that's pretty good to get some exposure to that. But it's really upsetting. Like, if you want to just come back to the outdoor focus of this podcast, it's like we literally are having, you know, that was not a right until this year where kids were able to go out and do that early season hunt with a gun. But like, they're making decisions based off of our lifestyle, and they don't even live that lifestyle. And you have your legislators who support you and are speaking on your behalf, and then it just gets voted down. And that's like very frustrating. Like, that's another one of those things that like mutes people and says like, well, screw this. But like, in that situation, I want to send my thoughts in. Like, who do I send that to? You know, who in my county, who do I voice my opinions to in my county to make sure that I'm being heard, you know?
No, you know, so you can do a couple of things. Number one, and again, great subject matter. You would write to me, or today you would write to Carla Boyce, who's currently our legislator in the 5th Legislative District. So if you lived in the 5th Legislative District, you'd send the letter to her, or hopefully, you know, after November 2nd, you'd send it to me. But then you want to copy, you should try to copy the legislative board. It should go to every legislator. And you can, you know, usually there's an address, and I haven't been involved in this enough to know what exactly that address is, but you should be able to ask your legislator to then forward it on to the rest of the legislative group, as well as to the county executive. But what I would say in a situation like that is that in this exact situation, don't give up. Don't let it just go that it got voted down or vetoed. If that's the case, that, you know, it's got to come back up again. And maybe we all have to do a better job of selling that proposition so that it doesn't get vetoed again. Mm-hmm. And did it get vetoed because did it get put down because there just wasn't enough information on maybe some areas of concern where, you know, maybe out in Honeoye Falls, Mendon area, Rush, it was all move it forward, very positive, but up near the Grease area or Irondequoit near Durand Eastman or, you know, wherever, it was just a little bit still too controversial and too closely populated.
Right.
You know, it's funny because we just passed this year. We're now allowing bow hunting in the village of Honeoye Falls.
No kidding.
We passed that. And
that's probably been a long time coming. Huh?
It has been. You know, it was voted down 14 or 15 years ago. And I think it was voted down because at that time we were really talking about it as a deer harvest and a deer hunting program. And the committee this time did a really, really good job of focusing with the DEC and the committee in general, focusing on the need to cull the herd, to keep the deer herd healthy, to you know, try to minimize or not eliminate for sure, but minimize some of the car deer accidents and a lot of the property damage. We have some really some properties that are really damaged a lot within the village. And
it's unhealthy to have these places like that.
That's me.
Yeah, yeah.
I go to bed at night in the winter and I look out my front door and 2 feet away there's a whitetail eating my bushes.
Right.
You know, I mean, they live in our landscape.
Absolutely.
Which
they're
going to live in your landscape.
Right.
But when you've got a herd of 15 deer in the like you're outside the village, Dad, but like Rick, you live right in the village. I mean, for there to be as many deer as there are in that heavily populated human area, that's not a good balance there.
After the season, I'll put a trail cam out in my backyard, and on any given night, there's 6 or 8 deer standing there.
Right.
He's retired now, but Dr. David Ness and Mary Kay Ness, they have one of the larger properties within the village. And of course it's right behind their old doctor's building, or their physician's building, but they've got about 15 acres out there or whatever. And it borders it's right across from Flaherty's restaurant, right across the creek from that, but they are devastated every year. And then the gentleman, Art English, who owns the property directly adjacent to that, and some of the other neighbors, they've put up all sorts of fences, and they've spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on their landscaping and protecting the landscaping from the deer, and the deer get through it no matter what. And they've killed trees, they've eaten their bushes. It just got to be so bad. So we ended up, we got a committee going. We made sure they took their time. We worked with the DEC, but we sent a survey out to all of our residents, and some say they didn't get it. And I mean, that always happens, but we took the opportunity. We put it on our Facebook page, we put it on our website. We got a lot of feedback from people. And at the end of the day, we came up with a program to allow bow hunting in the village. Obviously, anyone that's doing that or partaking in that has to follow DEC regulations. So there has to be enough property. They have to be far enough away from another home. They have to follow all the regulations. But that's now allowed. And we're just gonna take it for a year or two, see how it works, see what kind of engagement we get, see what kind of deer take we get. And then do we move to a more structured program? We'll see. We'll see where. But again, it goes to the same thing within the county. You have to keep trying. So you have to engage your legislature.
And you brought up a good point, Rick, because was that Erie County or Wyoming County? So in Erie County, there was something going on that prompted the executive to veto that, right? And you make assumptions, like the assumption is if the legislative body approved it, put it to him or her to sign, and they vetoed it, why? You got to know the why before. Right. You don't want to jump to the why. You got to figure out the why. So the other thing that the counties, this is an observation, that I'm seeing more and more from the state, like normally the state DEC would be, we're going to allow youth hunting in New York State, blah, blah, blah. But it started years back. If you look back where there was a shotgun or do we allow rifle, that was a county by county, right, opt-in. But we've seen this with COVID too, where there's in my district, right, I'm running over 3 counties, right? So I got Monroe County, Ontario County, Livingston County. And the protocols are different per county because the state gives the counties the ability, the county health department, to set their local protocol. So the reason I bring this up is because we've seen this in a couple areas. There's the holiday hunt, late season holiday hunt that comes up, and we all thought it was a done deal, right? Now we're finding out that it would probably be parsed out to the counties to make final decision, right? So, and then you hear like what Rick's got going on. We're in the village, we're actually having some deer hunting, right? So if you're involved in local politics here. But at the county level, the other thing is the youth hunt, right? That youth rifle hunt. So the reason I bring that up is because I think it's super important that we maintain the lines of communication with our local county legislators, because some of these decisions that are initially made at the state level get parsed out to the local level, and your local county legislator is going to have a say in that.
Right.
So when it comes time to weigh in on things that are near and dear to us, such as our outdoor activities and hunting, whether you're a snowmobiler or a goose hunter and you're against the late season, that holiday week hunt, whatever your position is, contact your county legislator,
right,
and let them know so they can best speak your voice on the floor, right, Rick?
Yeah. You need that engagement, and if the county legislator is only hearing from a couple of people, and then he or she is going to put his or her own thought process into that, it's really a small window. We need to have more and more people engaged so that the legislator will know what the bulk or the masses in his or her district are thinking. You know, and quite often, you know, we hear about the silent majority, and that's really true. I think a lot of times it's the people who are really vocal and sometimes over the top vocally are really part of the minority, but because they feel their backs are up against the wall,
and they're not hearing from anybody.
And they're not hearing from anybody else, so they're fighting and they're being loud. We need the silent majority to actually not be silent anymore. So we need people to step up. If you have issues, you've got to engage your local legislators.
Right. And nowadays with email, it's not hard.
Right.
Right. And if you like, whether it be state or local, you go onto your county webpage, you go to the Village of Huntington Falls webpage. You can email Mayor Rick Milne or Mayor at Huntington Falls, Village of Huntington Falls. But same thing at the state level. As you move up, you can Google it. You just go on and do a search, and it'll say find my senator, find my legislator, right? And it gives you an email. You know, contact us, share your thoughts. It's really very easy. So we hear a lot of these things going on, these different issues, and a lot of us are like, yeah, I got to reach out on that. Like the new regs, they did a complete rework of the New York State deer regulations, and there was an open comment period where you could, you know, and it's like I took the time to sit down and write through all the, you know, different points that were that I had thoughts on that I felt might be valuable, or I wanted to make sure that we're weighed in on. So, you know, taking the time to do that, it's hard to find the time. We're all busy, but and at the county level, I think it's more and more important, and we're seeing that these county positions and having that connectivity with them is going to, you know, maybe directly benefit you.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people also think that if they write to their legislator or their senator or assembly person, that it just goes to a mailbox and someone else is reading it.
That's my assumption, yeah.
Yeah, and quite honestly, I have written both my senator and my assembly person, and they have both responded to me directly. Now, I'm in a different position. I understand that. I'm mayor in a village, but a lot of the emails do go to an office, but they then do get transferred to that senator or that assembly person or that legislator. I will tell everybody I'm going to do my very best to answer emails directly and make sure that I'm seeing them all. And to your dad's point, you know, when somebody emails the mayor in Honeoye Falls, it comes to me. It doesn't go to somebody else. And if somebody emails the village itself, I get copies of that. So, you know, there's a lot of us that really are engaged, and I think people need to understand that your comments is your dad said, your comments do matter. Your comments do make a difference. You know, whenever we have a legislative position that we're trying to take across the state, we try to get all of our mayors to jump on board and send that letter, because, you know, if that assembly person or if that senator gets, you know, 500 letters from 500 different mayors, all, you know, standing up for a point, well, then he or she knows it's getting some support and they need to follow it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had correspondence that you send in, and I've even gotten phone calls back from, like, I might email a state legislator, and I've had it happen, and it's not uncommon that I'd get a phone call and say, you know, I'm calling on behalf of Assembly Person so-and-so or Senator so-and-so, and I just I shared your thoughts with the assemblyman, and they would like to know more. Tell us a little bit more. I have a few questions. So it's like once you engage, you'll find out that people like Rick will get back to you. You know, and I never look down my nose at talking to a staffer. If somebody called and said, I'm from the office of, you know, legislator Rick Milne, and I'm, you know, talk to them, because they have a direct line to that person, a state or local or federal political representative, and they will, like, sometimes that's the person you want to talk to.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess for me, I'm like sitting here thinking about this discussion, and it, you know, if I have an issue with, like, going back to the Erie County thing, you know, it would probably be good to just reach out to the lowest level in your closest to you community and have that dialogue with them and say, where do I go with this?
Right.
Because it would be easier for me to reach out to my mayor and say, Mayor, this is bothering me. These are my thoughts on this issue. Where's the best place for me to go with this?
Right. And that's a good way to do it, Billy. You know, at the same time, even if you write your legislator or you write your assembly person, it never hurts to copy your mayor and your supervisor in, because you want him or her to understand that this is a concern that you have. And if they're doing their job, they, you know.
I'm thinking about it from a work perspective. It's like if I was to send an email to the owner of our company and not include my boss would be like, what the heck? You just put me underneath the bus and ran me over.
Right.
Whereas, you know, keeping everybody in the loop and like, hey, you know, I am going to go to this next level, but Rick, I want you to be aware or whatever,
right.
Because then you know that it's important to that individual for them to go to that level. Yep. So, and I think that's really the overall message here. And I think, you know, with you and what you're doing running for this position, you know, I think it's important to understand why people are getting into these roles. And these are not flashy, you know, front page news positions, but your public service is putting you in this, you know, you want this position to better your community.
Yeah. They a lot of doors I've knocked on, you know, we talk about, you know, common ground solutions and common sense solutions. And again, that's been our campaign slogan. You know, people look at me and they go, why do you want to do this? It's so toxic. And, you know, it's a very simplistic response, but I keep looking at people and say, if we give up, then we gave up. And I'm not going to give up. And I just, you know, as simplistic as that is, that's the way I feel. If we give up, then we gave up. And I don't want to be called a quitter. I don't want to think of myself as a quitter. And I believe that this is still, you know, the greatest nation on earth.
No doubt.
And I still believe that we live in a great community here. I still believe Monroe County is a great place to live. I think there are things that need to be worked on. And I think we need the right people in place to ensure that we continue down that path, which is why I'm running. And, you know, if we don't try, you know, then we might as well not be the United States of America. We might as well not be New York State. We gotta keep trying. And, you know, I don't believe in giving up.
Yeah. It's another chapter of serving too.
Yeah.
Really for you when, you know, we've talked about all the different things that you've done, and it's in your blood, you know. I mean, as a close lifelong friend, it's in your blood to be a local leader, to be committed to the service of others in many different capacities. And this is just a new chapter in how you can serve others and expanding your community now to include these other regions.
You know, Rotarians, their motto is service above self. And I really do believe in that. You know, it just, I've tried to instill that, and it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody to volunteer, but I still believe that everybody should try to volunteer someplace, whether it's in your youth sports, whether it's in your church, whether it's in your community, whether it's being a firefighter or a medic or helping serve at a soup kitchen, you know, whatever. There is nothing greater than serving your fellow human beings. And you know, I just love doing it. And, you know, I hope that I'm going to be able to continue in this capacity.
Yeah. What is like had to be very interesting. Have you ever done anything like this, going door to door? And I mean, is this something new? Cause I'm curious. I'm sure there was a lot of discussions that happened that you maybe didn't see coming, or you were going to the door of a Democrat and you're expecting for this opinion and maybe got something totally different, or it could be the same for a Republican or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's, you know, it's not my first time. Certainly when I ran for the assembly a number of years ago, I did a lot of door to door. But in my mayor's position, I really haven't had to do much door to door. So in a sense, it has been kind of new. And I've been very pleased. What I've tried to do, and I know not everybody who's running for this position is doing the same thing. If I know that it's a Democratic door, I'm still going. And I do know not everybody's doing that. I have seen other people drive up to a house that I know is either a Republican and they see a Democratic house, or a Democrat and they see a Republican house. They pull in the driveway, they look at their list and they back out. I don't do that. And when I see the other person's sign in a front yard, I make sure I'm going to that house because I want that person to see my agenda. I want to engage in that with that person. And I've been pleasantly surprised. And sometimes you wonder if it's just because you're standing in front of somebody and they're just trying to make you feel better, or they're just trying to get rid of you. But I've engaged with a lot of people on the Democratic who are Democrats, and they've said, I love what you're saying, and I am not beholden to the other part, to the Democratic Party. I've gone up to people's homes who have signs of my opponent, and they said, I know the person. I consider that person a friend, and so I said, you could put your sign, but I'm not beholden to that person, and I like what you're saying, and you're giving me some things to think about. So that's been really positive. I've had a couple of people who are, Democrats that just said, I will never vote for another Republican again. I hate everything you guys stand for. And then you have to kind of take a step back and try to continue the engagement and say, well, tell me about what you're thinking, because, okay, I understand, but that's not me. This is what I'm all about. And there's, at the end of the day, or at the end of the conversation, sometimes those people say, you know what? Yeah, I could vote for you. That's very rewarding.
Yeah, that's almost better than going to a door where you already know what they're going to say.
Yeah, exactly. No, it is.
Because that's what you want. You want that dialogue to come away from it and say, you know what? We're two different sides of things, but it comes back to values.
Right.
And that's something I did a podcast with Todd Waldron. We had a discussion last winter. It was about, forest management and stuff. And I asked him, where do you even start? And in that discussion, it was values.
Yep.
Let's start there. Because at the end of the day, I guarantee you almost every single human cares about the same things.
Right.
There's outliers on every spectrum of everything.
Yep.
And they are such a small piece, and that's what gets all the attention.
Right. You're right.
Most people care about their family, their community, their safety, their security. Do I have food? Do I have shelter? Right. That's what truly matters to people. And I want my neighbor to have the best opportunities just like I do.
Yep.
And that shouldn't make you this side of the aisle or that side of the aisle. Those are values.
You're right, Billy. Though they are, and I think where the differences come up is how do we get to allow or not allow, but to afford people to have all those things. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where some of the differences are. I've always believed in, and I'll you can talk about healthcare, you can talk about whatever, but I've always felt that if I've worked all my life, I've paid my bills, I've paid for my health care, whatever, and all of a sudden my company goes belly up and I'm out of work and I don't have any health care, I believe I deserve health care. But I also believe that I have to go out and find another job so I can pay for the health care. There are others who feel that will say health care is a right. And I believe it. I think everybody should have or be able to get health care. But I don't believe we should just get it for nothing. I believe we have to work for these things. And it's the same thing, with the big controversy about the unemployment money that was given away for so long. Hey, if somebody loses their job, I want to help them out, but I'm only going to help them for so long. They've got to help themselves too. And every story is different. I understand that. But we got to a point where we were giving away so much, we were making it too easy for people that didn't want to go back to work. And people have to go back to work. Yeah.
There's a lot of things that come with work. It's not just money.
Exactly.
It's responsibility.
I've always taken pride in bringing home my paycheck every week or every other week whenever I get paid. And that means a lot to me. Yeah, listen, if I need help, I need help, but I want to make it. I want to get it on my own. Yep. And we shouldn't make it so easy for people that they don't have to work and that they don't have to try. Yeah. And there's always something for people if they really want to.
Agreed. And that's one of the things that I've found, and one of the things that's I'm sure some of these conversations I'm having with customers of mine, I probably shouldn't be having these discussions, but they have brought me so close with a lot of these people, because we're finding common ground. And, I'm dealing with transportation directors that are, this year more than ever, you guys are dealing with very crazy extenuating circumstances with kids that have become homeless, or they live in very bad situations. These kids are, some kids just they haven't shown up to school for a single day yet. and you know these areas, you know where these kids are coming from, and you know their parents and their family background, and it's devastating. Like now, as I become a father and I become a parent, and you want to give your kids the opportunity to be successful and to have all the resources they need to be able to learn and grow and develop. And then you see some of these communities where, and I've started learning about where I was going with this point is so many of the systems that we have had set up over decades now with affordable housing and different benefits that people can get on. But then once you get on those benefits, it's like it just strings you along. There's no way to get out of it. You're stuck there. And this is a talking point that I'm hearing on, like, I know Dan Crenshaw has done a bunch of great podcasts on this where he's had housing, people from the housing department on to talk about these issues. And when you become aware of what's going on there and you're like, oh my God, like those poor people are stuck in that situation.
Right.
They literally, if they want to keep their house or keep their apartment, they can't make any more money. If they make more money, they have to pay more for their house.
Right.
Where I have a mortgage where that I bought the house, and if I make more money, I pocket more money because my mortgage is set here. Right. And these poor people are stuck.
Trapped.
And then everybody wants to say, well, they don't have the opportunities. You have put them in that position as, and I'm getting passionate about this because at the end of the day, it comes back to kids. I'm in pupil transportation, supporting that world. You're in that. And at the end of the day, it comes back to the kids. Right. And you see these kids that have no chance from the start. And that's what bothers me. I don't care what your race, gender, color, but ethnicity, what country you're from. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But those kids never have a shot. And the families are never given a true shot because they're put into this system. And like that's one of those things that's gotten me motivated to figure out how the hell I can make a difference in my little community, in my hunting community, in my neighborhood. Like, what can I do to help people and have some discussions that are out and open, and not saying that I have the answers, but like you have to be aware of the way that these systems are set up.
Yep.
And if we're going to have a discussion about it, that doesn't mean that Rick Milne's a bad guy because he thinks we need to maybe look at this and maybe adjust some, not that that's what your position is going to be, but a politician shouldn't say something like that and immediately say, well, you're against this or you're against that. It's like, no, let's talk about the problem. Right. I don't know.
Yeah. You got to get to the root with all these things. You got to get to the core, to the root of the problem to make it go away or find a way to, help alleviate that issue. Mm-hmm. And so many people, and it's like you were bringing up earlier, it doesn't matter what the subject is. So many people are afraid to start that dialogue. And the whole thing with, all the racial tensions that have been going on for a long time, but certainly over the last couple of years, it's hard for people to understand or to think about, okay, how do I start engaging on this? Because it makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And we have to. I've been lucky where a lot of the customers that I have that I'm dealing with from a work standpoint, there's a large diverse racial group. And I've had some really great engagement and conversations with a lot of the Black community that I'm talking to in business.
Yeah.
And just having conversations, just trying to learn because, you have to be afraid not to say, I'm sorry, I don't understand this. Help me understand. Because if, it goes back to, if you're not Black, you don't know what Black people are going through. And if you're not gay, you don't know what gay people are going through. All you can do is be open enough and care enough to have the discussions to try to understand as best you can.
Yeah.
And it's not easy, and I've got a lot to learn, but boy, if you're not learning every day, you're no place.
That's right.
But every person has learning to do there.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
you're a Black person, you need to understand where I'm coming from because I'm uncomfortable to talk about that.
Right.
And I've had discussions too. I got a couple customers in mind that I've had like 2-hour-long conversations with have nothing to do with a school bus.
Right.
And we are like, and I'm getting educated.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we're not far off.
Right.
Like we're on the same page.
Yeah. It's
like you said, it comes back to values.
Comes back to values, but you're right. Everybody just wants to be able to live and get ahead and be somewhat comfortable and safe and all that. And you have to be able to sit down and try to get beyond some of those barriers that we've all grown up with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not easy. It absolutely isn't easy. And as I said, I've got a long way to go. I try to learn every day, but I try to be as open-minded as I can to be able to talk to people about this stuff. And, you know, hopefully I'm becoming a better person because of it.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's what all people need to do. And we all know people in our lives that are, you know, shields up, don't care, going to do this, don't know. And I feel bad for those people because they're not growing.
Right.
Like there's no growth, there's no improvement.
Yep.
And this is a time in all of our lives where the next leaders are going to step up, where you can better yourself as a person to understand someone else's perspective. When all that stuff went down last spring and there's a protest and everything, and I'll never forget, I mean, it'll stick with me to this day. And my brother-in-law, Donnie, I have so much respect for him because he has a totally different life experience than I do. He grew up in the country, had incredible family support, went off to college, great education. I mean, American, you know, beautiful American life. He's got everything, you know, beautiful wife, beautiful kids. He's got it all. And he has found a career, and he's very passionate about it, working in these underprivileged communities, teaching. And he has a perspective that none of us in our friend group have, because he has been working in these communities and he finds so much, like he feels so fulfilled because he's helping these kids to achieve something that he feels like he's able to pour into them, maybe something that he's not getting from, that they're not getting from home, or an opportunity that they didn't have.
Right.
And we went,
That's awesome.
It is. And I was sitting with him. It was when, you know, the protests were going on around the George Floyd situation. And then there was stuff going on in Buffalo and Rochester.
Yep.
I don't know when that was. It was like June-ish or whatever. And there was bad.
It was around Memorial Day.
There was bad stuff happening in Buffalo, like watching this stuff live on, like it was disturbing. Watching this stuff live on, literally live video on Twitter of, you know, the cop line marching down the street. And I'll never forget the image. And the car, I watched the car come into the picture and drive over those cops, and gunshots being fired at the vehicle. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm watching this live action right now. And there was people that literally experienced those things in these cities, living their lives because that's where they lived. And I'll never forget sitting with Donnie, where it was somebody's birthday, and we're sitting there, and, you know, Donnie said to me, he goes, how are the kids doing at school? You know, he's teaching at Rochester Institute, Rochester Prep Charter School. And, you know, here he is in these meetings, they're doing these Zoom calls with the kids because everything's remote learning because of COVID. So none of these kids have support. Who knows what their home life is? It might be great, might not be. I don't know. But these kids what the hell are they going through? You know, their communities are in flames. You know, all this is going on. There's craziness in the news, and what's going on in a 16-year-old's head. It's hard enough being a 16-year-old. And Donnie said that there was some, you know, they had these meetings, and here's these principals that are, you know, 45-year-old making tons of money, white guy, trying to tell these 16-year-old black kids how they are supposed to feel right now. And there was, and I'll never forget it. Donnie told me, he goes, there's one of the students, you know, took themselves off mute and just went off. And he's like, you need to shut your mouth, because you have no idea what we are thinking right now and what our feelings are, what our emotions are. You have no idea. Yeah. And it's like, that has stuck with me, regardless of whether it's a race discussion or it's a, you know, gender issue, whatever. It's just like, you don't know what somebody's living through. So shut your mouth and let them talk, and then find the common values where you can be on the same page. And, you know, to close out that discussion, you know, my brother-in-law got inducted in the Attica Sports Hall of Fame this weekend. In his speech, totally not what I was expecting, but his speech was, you know, everybody's getting up there and talking about their accolades and their teammates and all this stuff. And Donnie talked about his teammates, talked about his coaches, talked about his parents, but he talked about the impact that sports and the community that he was raised in with that, and going off to school and everything else, but the community that he had to support him through that. And now he's able to do that through sports with the kids that he's coaching, and, you know, staying in touch with kids, you know, in Colorado, that first generation going to college and playing a college sport because of what Donnie did and what he helped that young man find in his life in sports gave him value, gave him reason for being.
Gave him purpose.
Gave him purpose. That's what I was trying to say.
Right.
So that's what it's all about, So I think if you can, kind of rounding that around, I don't even know where I wanted to hit on that, but I don't know where I was trying to go with that story. But you don't know what other people are dealing with, and you don't know what it is. So instead of like flying off the cuff and saying, well, you're this, so you must be that. It's like, no, it's like you have to just start talking.
Right.
And next thing you know,
open mind, be willing to learn.
Absolutely.
And that's what I love about these podcasts is like, you've been in my life for 33 years.
Yeah.
We've never discussed stuff deeper than are the Bucks moving this weekend, or should I throw a fastball here or a curveball?
Exactly.
And you've been there with me through that whole part of life. But having the depth of discussions and just seeing where people's minds are at, it's like in the end, most people are good, and you want to do good for your community. You want to do good for your family and everything else. And you need to do that, walk the walk,
Exactly. Yep.
So my mouth is dry.
I
got fired up.
You need water?
I got water over here, but then I have to pee again. But so what do you, any closing thoughts for you guys? So you got, you're probably pretty excited. Tuesday's the election.
I'm really looking forward to November 3rd.
Yeah, I bet you are.
It's been 6 months plus of hard work, and it's tough to, it's one thing to plan to do the job and then mayor and whatever, but it's really a challenge to do a campaign and still do my family stuff, my work stuff, and my mayor stuff and keep up. Luckily, I have a great village board that's helped out. But, I'm really excited about Tuesday. I'm going to be more excited for a victory, but to see what happens on Wednesday. But my parting thought really is just that, again, part of what we've talked about today, your vote does matter. We've got to get people out to vote. We need those percentages to be higher than normal. And I hope my message has gotten through to the Democrats, has gotten through to the Republicans, the conservatives, and to the blanks, the independents, that I will work hard for all of you. And that, we will find common ground solutions. We will find common sense solutions, but we need you to get out and vote. It's the day is Tuesday, and there's early voting that started now, but the day is Tuesday, and we need people to show up. So I hope they will.
Yeah. And just to hit on your three major, points that you're focused on, on your flyer here is, strengthening public safety, controlling government spending, and supporting small business. And, is anything on any three of those that you want to?
Yeah. Well, again, I've received some endorsements, which I'm really proud of. So the Rochester Chamber of Commerce, the Committee for Positive Economic Development, gave me their endorsement, and because they know how hard I've worked to bring the business that we have in Honeoye Falls to Honeoye Falls and support of that. And I'll continue to work for our small business owners, because and for all of our business owners and all of our businesses, that's the backbone of our economy, obviously. But when I was interviewed by the Rochester Police Locust Club and the Finger Lakes Police Federation, which I received their endorsements as well, I told them I will always stand behind our law enforcement and our emergency services professionals, both ambulance and fire. And I also, said, but I also believe in accountability. I am to be held accountable for what I say and do. You guys are to be held accountable, and so are the police and whatever. So, I will always support law enforcement. I will stand by them. I will stand with them. But we also have to do things right, and I think that's where our law enforcement, our fire, everything we do, it's not just emergency services. It's supporting our veterans. It's supporting those who have mental illness. We need to continue to get better at how we support them. And I'm going to do my best to continue to work with the Monroe County Legislature to continue to enhance all those programs.
Beautiful. Willie?
Awesome. Get out and vote November 2nd.
Yeah. Is there a web page to go to where people can, not just like for the county, to see what elections are out and open?
I mean, if you go to, you're going to have to go to your county website. I
Yep.
mean, and if you put in, if you go to monroecounty.gov and look up, elections or whatever, it will all be there.
Okay.
But this year, because of redistricting, all 29 Monroe County legislator positions are open, so they're all up for election. Plus,
Okay.
there's the new Rochester mayor, who, of course, Malik Evans is running unopposed. But that, and then there's some local supervisors and town board seats available as well. So, pretty much every municipality has something going on inside it.
That explains all the signs.
Exactly.
I don't see that. I don't see that in every county. Like
No.
Wyoming County, there's hardly nothing. So I don't know what's going on. So I got to go on and see, because there's no signs anywhere. Like there's nothing.
And
Maybe
it might not
Beasley
be a big election year in Wyoming County.
probably
but
isn't.
Monroe County, it's a big one.
There's a lot of Alan Diggs for president
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
Beasley for governor.
We gotta make sure that those Bills win.
Amen.
Yeah, it's their year has started out good. Obviously, a couple of tough losses that they really probably shouldn't have had, and that's a whole nother discussion, right? But they're still playing solid overall. We should have a really end up with a good season.
Yeah.
So they're fun to watch.
I was shocked to see the Titans spank the Chiefs again.
Phew.
So what's going on there?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's crazy.
The
isn't it?
Chiefs are struggling.
Yeah. We should have won that Titans game. But
I know.
although I loved them going for the win.
So did I.
I did.
And I won't fault them for that call, because
they shouldn't have been in the situation anyway.
Right. That's exactly it.
They needed to score touchdowns in those first two red
few
zone.
red zone.
Yeah.
you knew that was going to come
opportunities.
back to haunt them.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. But that's all right.
Well, hey, Billy, thanks for
Yeah.
having us on, and Rick, wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
If you are not successful at the end of the day on November 2nd, it won't be for a lack of effort
Yep.
and spreading a strong message to the community. So I wish you all the luck.
Thank you.
Happy to stand beside you on this little journey here.
It's been fun, and I appreciate Bill, everything you do, and Billy. I thank Pert Near Outdoors for having me on. This has been fun.
Yeah.
And I look forward to hopefully there'll be some good comments on it, and we'll go from there. But I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah,
I really do.
absolutely. And I love these discussions. I think this is, log talk is what we originally started out with, and it's just sitting around.
I feel
talking
guilty
about
as
stuff.
we sit in easy chairs here.
I know there's no log.
The fireplace in the back.
I don't feel guilty right now. I feel pretty good.
Yeah.
Pert near new experience for
That's
us to
right.
go down this path here. So thanks, Billy.
Thank you,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Good luck on Tuesday.
Thanks.
Fading them.
Fade 'em.